Howdy y'all, it's Mark here unexpectedly once again for Motovlog number 2. We received a meteorological reprieve and it is sunny and 57. Well, mostly sunny, but let's be about it. Going out a different way today. I really hate this road. It hasn't been paved since the dawn of time, so you really have to be careful, or it can really mess up your day. It rained like all get out yesterday, and I thought the whole weekend was going to be a wash. But it's going to get colder beginning tonight, and my girl will probably have to stay in the barn for several days thereafter. Got no particular destination in mind today. I'm gonna let the bike have her head and see where she wants to take us. I don't like the look of all that water. Not because it's water, just because it means I'm going to have to clean. Well, that in itself is its own therapy, isn't it? Take us out. Cheating a little bit. Play music when I ride, but this being an 05, it's not the most modern setup audio wise, so I have a little iPod shuffle clipped to my cable. I don't know if you can see it right there, that I just plug into the aux in port. Works pretty well. I went with the shuffle because it has a mechanical button on it. I was running one of the little nanos with the touchscreen interface, and it wasn't conducive to changing tracks or anything when the bike's in motion. First you got to wake it up, then you got to know where you got to punch at. Anyway, this is Lake Winnepesaukah, our ghetto version of Six Flags. It's been here since I was a kid. They've added a water park last couple years. Personally, amusement parks do not amuse. I will caveat that statement with Busch Gardens. Got ex-brother and sister, brother-in-law and sister, and his wife. Yeah, right. Can you tell I'm no good at genealogy? Anyway, my ex-wife and I would go visit, and we would go to the Busch Gardens in Williamsburg, Virginia, and that place is phenomenal. I don't like amusement park rides, but there is plenty enough there to keep you occupied if you don't like that sort of thing. Thank you. first official motovlog. I appreciate the feedback. I've watched a lot of motovlogs on YouTube. Thus, that's why we're doing this. But I always enjoy them. Mostly, I guess. Some leave me colder than others, but that's the same with anybody. You warm to the topic, you warm to the personality, or you don't. About how Betty here and I first met. Before Betty, BB, I don't know, I rode a 2005 Sportster, 883 low. Love the bike, my first bike ever. Although my parents both rode when I was but a wee lad. And I rode with them, either, well, usually strapped to the, not strapped, but behind my dad on his Honda 750, and this was the early 70s. My mom rode a Honda 200 CBR, and they got out of it, you know. They already had 3 kids at the time, so kids weren't the issue. We moved around quite a bit. My dad was transferred hither and yon, and it got, I guess, to where it was not conducive to toting the bikes all around and cars and plus house and stuff. So they let those go. Although my dad kept his motorcycle license up. Well, he didn't let it lapse from state to state. He always got recertified. He got his M endorsement in any state we went to. Well, back last April, my dad had a major health event. He had open heart surgery. He had a bad valve. And see if I can do this without getting run over. Yeah, but I missed the light. And I'd been thinking about, well, he had a bad valve 10 years ago, had that replaced, bounced back from that, no problem. That valve, that replacement valve failed, wore out, whatever. And another valve went with it. So they went in, replaced both those valves, had to do a bypass. No one was sure that he would pull through. He did, the ornery old cuss that he is. And I'd been thinking about, you know, in my 40s, call it midlife crisis, call it not, but I'd been thinking about picking up riding for years. And my then wife's opinion was, here we go. Sorry, that never gets old, does it? Anyway, when he went through that, it kind of put the decider on it for me. You know, woulda, coulda, shoulda, doneas, not getting any younger, the usual stuff. If any of you guys my age or older, you've probably had similar thoughts and evaluations of what you're doing, where you've been, what you want to do going forward. So I decided I'm going to ride, and to heck with you know, what anybody else says, you know, poke fun at me, whatever. So I bought the bike, got it off Craigslist. Real nice guy. Fortunately, I have a co-worker and her husband, and they're also friends, who went to evaluate the bike for me. And the husband test rode it, thought it was a sweet bike. Good price, loaded out, saddlebags, windshield, whole shoot match. So I thought that was going to be a good starter bike, so I bought it. Then I got my license, went through the Georgia ordained trading course. That was a 2-day course, and they basically give you the skills test at the end of the second day, and you pass that, you get your waiver, and you can go to the DMV and get your license updated. So I did that, and have been living large ever since. At the time, my dad had a 77 Sporty 1000 XLCH, and it has seen its better days. He had it's an AMF era Harley, so it was likely to sit more than run, at least. In taking this bike for an example, and the mythology I've read on others, then yeah, this was not unusual. Well, me getting a bike got the fire lit under him again. So when he got better, we did some riding, and we actually went to Bike Week in Daytona this past spring, 2014. Had a blast, an absolute blast. So after that, he got to toying with the idea that, you know, maybe it was time to upgrade to a more reliable bike. He loved mine. After his recovery, he's just not as strong as he used to be, so he had to stay something, you know, within that weight range, or else he just couldn't physically handle the bike. So our local Harley dealership ran a tent sale, so we went out there looking for him a Sporty. There weren't any. They're the first ones to go. Any used ones they offer, and they'd sold everything they had. They had plenty of street glides, ultra glides, tri glides, glide glides, you name it. And call it lack of common sense or whatever, my eye was taken by this 07 Street Glide in pewter silver, beautiful bike. Only had like 7,000 miles on the clock, but I was intimidated by a larger bike. Well, I sat on it and hemmed and hawed and never took it out. Well, there was another guy looking at it at the same time Dad and I was, and I'm not quite sure exactly when this turned into me getting a bike from him getting a bike, but surely it did. So I went back home and dinged with some numbers and decided if that's really wanted, was it time for me to you know, step up. You know, I've had 5,000 miles under my belt. At the time, hadn't been licensed a year, hadn't been riding a year, about 8 months. And I said, what the hey? So went back the next day with my dad, and they had sold that bike. They had a couple of others. They weren't really, they were newer, out of the price price range of what I wanted to pay for them. So I just gonna really call it a day and head out. And then the salesman asked if I'd ever thought about electric lights. Actually, the mere thought intimidated the hound dog out of me, because we're talking a radical difference in bike. I mean, weight, mass, power, the whole shooting match. Now I know there may be those that says, well, the street light's not that much different, and you're probably right. But it was just the, you know, visual impact that had me concerned at my skill level. So I said I really hadn't thought about it, but we went out and went back under the tent. You know, they had 10s and 11s and what have you, and they were all well over $20,000, and that's way more than I wanted to spend. I only spent $5,000 for the Sporty, and I could handle a $100 a month payment. I wasn't looking to get in over my head. The Street Glide, they wanted 14, and I was willing to do that. But everything else was out of my price range, and I told the guy, you know, sorry, thanks, but I'm going to pass. And just as we were about to walk away, the guy says, well, I've got this 2005 sitting over here that I think a guy's interested in it, but he hasn't really put any money down on it, so you want to look at that one. I said, okay. So we pulled it out, and this is it. And I was a little scared. Of course, scared on a motorcycle is not a bad thing. My dad loved the bike. I thought she's pretty darn sexy myself. So I asked if I could ride it. He said sure. He went and, you know, took all my information, copied my driver's license, my insurance, took a DNA sample, a feed in a cup, you know, whatever it takes for them to let you take a bike out. So I got on her, muscled her up, and took off. And my dad told me after the fact that he was scared, but as soon as he saw me pull it up and take off on it, then he knew I could handle it, and he was right. I loved it. Yeah, quite a bit different from a Sporty. And you know, I spend a lot of my time, at least before I moved to the new place, on the interstate, commuting to and from work. And the Sporty could be a little challenging in interstate situations with truck blasts and whatever else, and just being able to be seen. This bike is so much more comfortable. I do not regret it for a second. So I got back, told my dad I liked it, and told the guy, let's talk. So we went to talk. They valued my, I say valued with air quotes, they valued my bike at $3,400. And my dad already knew what I wanted out of the bike. So I told him there was no way I was going to do that. And he said, well, I'm sorry, our hands are tied, because, you know, we can only do, you know, wholesale. And I said, yeah, so you can put it back on the floor and sell it for what I wanted to sell it for. I understand how that works. Doesn't mean I had to like it. So I'm ready to cut the deal right there and take off, because I'm not going to give them my bike and have the difference added on to the note for the Ultra. About the time I was about to stand up and thank him for his time, my dad leaned over and says, I'll buy it. I looked at him and said, you're kidding me. He said, no, and I'll give you what you want for it too. I I said sold. And so my dad currently has my bike, old bike, and I have the Ultra. So it worked out that we both got quote-unquote new bikes out of the deal, and couldn't be happier, either one of us. My dad still doesn't ride much, but it's mainly because as a heart patient, he's on blood thinners, and you can freeze in a desert on those things. You're cold all the time, so unless it's like 400 degrees outside, he does not like to ride because he's cold. Of course, that's an exaggeration, but really his prime riding weather is if it's 80 degrees or up. So when it's warm, we ride. So that's how me and this girl got together, and I am not even looking for another bike. Of course, that being said, she has cost me a little bit of money with an 05 with then 32 on the clock. I bought her with 32 on the clock. I didn't know at the time, but there's a cam tensioner issue with the 88 cubic inch engines, and as part of, while the bike had been serviced prior to my purchasing it, they did not check the cam tensioners. I'm already in 5th gear, and I know why, but it doesn't make it any, I don't know, I want to say ethical, because if they open it up and they see that the cam tensioners are indeed shot, they are ethically bound to repair that. And if they don't open it before it sells, well, then they ain't got to repair or replace, and thus it maintains their profit margin. Don't like it. I see why they do it, but in the end, between that, I had to get a new rear tire, it was time for service interval, yada yada blah blah, $2 grand went out the door. So, you know, I don't mind spending the money if it will help me keep my neck intact. We're gonna turn around here. I don't want to end up in Dalton today. But I do have to give kudos to the service rider that was handling me. He tried everything he could. I can't go that way because there's a median there. We're just gonna have to do something else, you know. Discount. I hadn't served in the military, so there wasn't a veterans discount that he could have given me that they extend. I'm not a member of the Hog chapter, so couldn't do that. Could have joined, but in investigating it, of it, but I don't know. The more bikes you throw together, the bigger the chance that something is just not going to work out right. I did a toy run this Christmas season, and you know 700-800 bikes, and things get a little dicey. You know what you can do on a motorcycle, and you assume that the ding dong riding next to you has at least some proficiency with a motorcycle, but you never know. I've had this bike on one long trip, and that was to visit my mom for Mother's Day in Gastonia, North Carolina. The route I normally take, which is all interstate, I go south to Marietta, Georgia, north side of Atlanta, and hook up on I-85 and shoot up that way. And I thought it'd be a grand idea to, since this was my first motorcycle trip, that I would go back roads. So I decided I would go north from here and go up through the Ocoee and through Cashiers, North Carolina, the Highlands, and all that mess, and not punch a clock. I gave myself a couple extra days, both before and after the visit, so I'd have time to get there and get back and not feel like I had to kill myself. And one thing I did not count on was rain. And it rained. It was great when I started out, or else I never would have taken her out of the barn, but I got about 100 miles in, and it just began to rain, and it did not stop. And of course, having never traveled that route before, I had no idea just how twisty-turny those twisty-turnies were. I am not unfamiliar with mountains, riding on mountains. There are several here: Lookout Mountain, Sand Mountain. I've done lots of twisty-turnies, but these things, and I've only had the bike at that point maybe a month. Switched back almost on themselves. I was surprised I wasn't pulling upholstery out of my nether regions by the time that was over with. I came back interstate. That's how insane that trip was. Maybe not so for some of you old salts out there, but it was definitely a bit nerve-wracking for me. Needless to say, what normally takes me 5.5 hours on interstate in my truck took me about 8 going that way with the weather, and by the time I rolled into my mom's driveway, I was ready to get off this motorcycle. But I'm still glad I did it. None of us likes riding in the rain, but you need to be able to do it. Get out though. I could do without that. I guess there's a cold front rolling in. It's going to drop the temp. or they will wave back, or they will initiate the wave. Some that don't. I can't give any stats as to those who do versus those who don't. I know I will usually, unless I'm involved in manipulating controls, and then it's a head nod, whether you can see that or not. When you're going by, I do not know. But it's the thought that counts. But, really? You're killing me, people. That's okay, we've got 2 lanes. No waiting. Video setup by my KD7. Howdy, Mike. I am using a Sony Action Cam. The HDR AS15 is not the newest model out there, but versus price, you can get this model for $100, $120 new, and it comes with several mounts. Not everything you need, I think, to stick it on a motorcycle helmet. You're in like Flynn if you want to put it on a bicycle helmet. Gosh, this wind's getting up. But I have that in a, it comes with a waterproof case, which is great for, I guess, your average stuff, but it's not good for motovlogging, because even though it is in a sealed case, you can't mount the camera naked. You have to mount it in this case, and the case itself, supposedly watertight, is not airtight, and you get so much wind noise. A couple other videos on my channel, Sunday Ride and my riding Atlantic Avenue, that was in Daytona Beach. Those videos were in the case, and even with that case, wind noise is atrocious. Aftermarket, though, well, not aftermarket, it's a Sony product, but they make a skeleton case. Well, not to mention with the waterproof case, you can't use an external microphone. So, kind of makes motovlogging nigh on impossible. But they've got this skeleton case, which mounts and holds the camera, but allows you to flip the little access door open to be able to put, still in 5th gear, to put an external mic. And while it does stick out from my head about 6 to 8 inches, there's no undue weight. I can't even tell I'm wearing it, at least until the first time I bang it on something, which hasn't happened yet. I'm going to want to be in this lane, I think. And I find that it works quite well. It's got built-in Wi-Fi with a mobile app, so oh, there went my camera. I still feel it hanging on, so I'm going to have to get off here, and we're going to call this an end to the motovlog for today. Thanks for watching and then listening, and we'll catch up with you later.